The reason I chuckled when I was talking about hate watching the news, the classic 6 o'clock news where they talk about every other sport aside from the most relevant Kiwi sports that the niche case talks about, was because I have spent the last not 24 hours, maybe 12 hours watching and learning a bit about the USA soccer team who have had some issues. I think they lost to Panama and then they lost to Canada in their own qualifying kind of situation. And I intentionally did not call them the US men's national team because they're just they're just the soccer team from the USA. Like, if you're going to have a nickname, make it like imaginative, creative, the All Blacks, the Blackhawks, the All Whites, whatever you want to, just don't, you can get away from the US men's national team. But that's America. So I do love learning about USA soccer being shit. In the same way that I love learning about England cricket being shit. So I've been learning about US men's soccer. The players don't seem to have any desire, any heart, any mana in representing USA for a soccer game. That's all the fans want. The fans don't seem to really care about like the skill or the talent of the players or where the players play around the world. They just want a team that actually tries hard. And also, I think the loss to Canada was at the big stadium in LA. Well, one of the big stadiums, SoFi, I think it was. And there wasn't anyone really there. So USA, they're hosting the Football World Cup that the All Whites New Zealand just qualified for. And USA suck after they just swapped coaches because the last coach led them to a sucky period. They hired a new coach, Pochettino, from the Premier League from Europe. He's a big dog. He's going to change everything. He's like a celebrity coach. Wowza. They still suck. And they sucked in front of no USA football fans. Like England cricket, where I compared New Zealand's cricket culture to England's cricket culture, where guys who aren't playing for the Black Caps, guys who are on the T20 circuit, they play for a trophy. They want to play domestic cricket. They still want to represent New Zealand, even though they don't have contracts. We know contracts don't actually mean anything because you can still represent New Zealand without a Black Caps contract. But not only that, they actually want to play for a trophy. They want to get in amongst the lads for their domestic cricket teams. That is completely different to English cricket culture. That is why England has their one-day issues. That's why New Zealand's a better cricketing nation than England. So after sitting with that comparison between England and New Zealand cricket cultures for a few months, now we have this USA versus New Zealand football culture comparison, where USA, the players don't really, the way they perform doesn't tell the fans they're desperate. They love to play for USA. They represent their nation with pride and dignity. And fans are responding. They are not showing up. And of course, you go USA football, it's basically a rich man's sport. There's a lot of structural issues in how grassroots football in USA, grassroots soccer, should I say, is set up. We've just had All Whites playing against oceanic teams, Fiji and New Caledonia, I think. I keep getting Vanuatu and New Caledonia mixed up, but we've had the All Whites playing against Fiji, New Caledonia, two heavyweights of international football in Aotearoa. Chris Wood, fantastic form in the Premier League. He's desperate to play for the All Whites back in New Zealand. He's so desperate, he risks getting injured. And he does get injured, but he doesn't care. He's happy. He loves representing New Zealand. He is setting the tone for how Kiwi footballers want to represent Aotearoa. And then you got behind you there, well, you got the Wellington Phoenix Women goalkeeper Vilau just flipping the bird and classic moment of Kiwi sports. But you also got Chris Wood in the crowd with the fans.
Both bookable offences, by the way.
Oh, yeah, there you go. fans who are desperate to see the All Whites play football. Both of those things are the opposite of what is happening in USA football ahead of a period where USA football is hosting the World Cup. So I reckon we should celebrate our footballing culture right now with the recent events and how Kiwi football just loves each other. The fans love the players love the fans. We're all just happy celebrating Kiwi football.
Yeah, now is definitely a good time to celebrate a bit of Kiwi football. It's I don't know, because the final itself is a little bit of a strange affair because the All Whites. No, yeah, I think it was more nerves than anything. Maybe a bit of pressure of expectation in the first half. It took them a while to get going against the New Caledonia team that I thought defended levels beyond what Fiji showed them in the semi-final beforehand. Fiji were kind of a shambles defensively for a team that spent like 3 weeks practicing and preparing. They did have some injuries though, so keep it fair on Fiji. But the All Whites were able to pick them apart in the wide areas, whereas New Caledonia just doubled up the wide areas every time. So it was very hard to get room for crosses, except when they won corner kicks. And when they won corner kicks, they looked like they could score off any single one of them at any point. But throughout throughout the whole frame of the qualifying thing, I think tells a fuller story about the state of the sport. At least, well, tells a state about the All Whites, but I think the All Whites situation reflects what's happening with football ferns and youth teams and whatever, in Auckland FC and Wellington Phoenix and all this stuff, Kiwi pros overseas, where that idea about the best players want to be there. They didn't have to be there for all of these things. It's one thing, like everyone wants to kind of be there at the moment you qualify for the World Cup, sure, but this has been a pretty steady squad throughout each of the qualifiers, throughout most of their friendly things recently. Like, those guys just want to be there anytime the All Whites play. Chris Wood always wants to be there. Tommy Smith doesn't even play. He still wants to be there. He wants to hang around. Like, there was, great stories, I think, around, I won't say narratives, I'll say stories around around like Costa Barbarouses, wasn't selected for the 2010 World Cup where maybe he should have been. And it's taken him this many goes to potentially get back. He's going to have to sustain it one more season in order to still be selected in a year's time, because it's pretty competitive for places at the moment. But him playing such a big impact and them getting there, comes off the bench in place of an injured Chris Wood, gets a goal, sets up another one. The fact that Michael Boxall scored the goal, couple of 35-year-olds, I think Boxall's actually 36 now, scoring the crucial goals. So they're two most experienced players in the squad outside of Tommy Smith, who is... I actually, at the point where Barbarouses scored after Boxall had scored, I'm like, well, you got to sub on Tommy at some point here, because he's probably going to score as well. Like, let's just go all in. Or at least give, like, the guy who was there the last time we made it, one of the guys who was there, Chris Wood was as well, as a teenager. Like, it's a nice little symbolic cyclical Nick Willis to Sam Tanner to Sam Ruth moment. But I guess you still kind of had that in a way where, like, there was a bit afterwards where they showed, I think Tommy Smith was just going around patting everyone on the back, but there was a bit where the camera caught him like with his arm around Tyler Bindon saying a few things to him. I'm like, that's like it's almost like the Cat Stevens song, it's like father and son. It's there's your Sam Tanner, Sam Ruth moment there. But yeah, there's a great culture around the All Whites, and their best players want to be there. Their best players turn up time and time again. They do risk injuries. They risk potentially not being in the best situations with their clubs when they get back. Which, like, there are tipping points. Finn Sermon not being here for this one is an example of that. But on the whole, I think, like, and that's, you always got to be a little bit flexible with those things. That's nothing against Finn Sermon. He wanted to be there. He actually did an interview with the Portland people where someone hinted that maybe he had skipped out on it to prioritize this. And he's like, no. The coaches were talking to each other. They decided if it's up to me, I would have played everywhere. I would never skip out on playing for my country. And I'm thinking, like, this is a dude who might have just been going to sit on the bench. Maybe not. I don't know for certain. But, he was desperate to be there as well, even though he understood the bigger picture and why he wasn't, and why the national team coach and his club coach decided that maybe it was the better situation. Just focus on one thing at a time here as he tries to nail down a spot in the Portland Timbers thing, but he was still desperate. Like this runs across the thing. It's a great thing to see because like once upon a time, even I don't think you could ever doubt the commitment of like Ryan Nelson or Winston Reid to playing for their country, but they missed a lot of games, you know. Winston Roofer once upon a time, but you check out Winston Roofer's cap things. Like, he played less than 30. Marko Stamenic has played more times for the All Whites than Winston Roofer ever did. You know, he just wasn't even available because he was in Europe and it was too hard to bring him back. So part of this is not just player commitment; it's also just when you have that many players available, you kind of got to be like no one's getting a spot held for them. You kind of got to turn up, or else you don't get picked because someone else takes your spot. But yeah, I think it's a lovely moment to be able to celebrate this and to bring it full circle with your point about America and them not having this. I'll use the England cricket comparison as well and say, imagine if Harry Brook was born in New Zealand, English parent, raised in back and forth a little bit, mostly raised in New Zealand, and then decided, having been in the England system, decided actually I think I prefer to play for the Black Caps here, and then goes and commits to the Black Caps and becomes one of their best players. Because that's what's happened with American football, American soccer. Because Tyler Bindon was an under-19s international for the USA. His mother was born in USA, represented New Zealand football ferns many, many, many times, one of our best ever goalkeepers, but born in USA. You know, he was eligible. He lived there for a fair bit as a teenager. He decided to switch back to, and it's before his big breakthroughs with Reading. Well, it's after he'd started playing for Reading, but before he'd become the guy who was on the radar of Nottingham Forest. He just said, you know, it feels right to play for New Zealand. I feel more connected there. I'm more of a New Zealander. I'm going to go and play for them. He did. He's played against USA, funnily enough, for New Zealand as well. Like, I think at the Olympics level, I don't think he played when we played them. I think that was when he was injured when we played them last year. That feels like a nice moment as well. A nice indicator of the difference between the two is how. I mean, I think Tyler Bindon is our best centre back right here and right now. A lot of people talk about the potential of him. I think he's just the best centre back we have at the moment. He was outstanding against New Caledonia. I think he might be a starting level player for America as well. I don't know enough about the American soccer team to say that for sure, but I am pretty confident in saying that he would help most teams around the world get better at what they're trying to do. But he chose us instead of them. So now they're in shambles and we seem to be in a great place, and we've qualified for the World Cup that they're co-hosting. So it's, happy days.
And when I don't expect Kiwi sports fans to really be tapped in with USA football and what's happening with their team and their footballing culture. But having hate observed and, well, I don't want to say hate observed because I've enjoyed it. Like, I'm having fun. I'm loving it, right? So I'm not hating what I'm watching. I'm enjoying it. And to be honest, I don't want to use hate watch anymore because, again, like the TV1 news, I like seeing not just TV1, but 6 o'clock, maybe New Zealand Herald, maybe stuff. I like seeing how shit their coverage is. I like seeing our point of difference right there. So I enjoy it. I like seeing the flaws of English cricket. I love it. There's no hate there. So I forgive myself for using the term hate. And obviously we're peace and love around these ways. So we don't hate anything. But having observed USA soccer, USA football, why on earth would Tyler Bindon choose to play for USA over New Zealand? He's got equal, maybe not equal, maybe a bit this way, but that way. But there's two viable options. The All Whites, the senior players, the young players, the coaches, the staff, everyone loves being together. Everyone loves, and this is one of the few times I actually feel like, because of course all the athletes, all the big people in the world, they want to inspire people, and that's admirable, but chill out. Like, I'm not here to inspire anyone. I'm just here to talk my shit. You know, that's what we do. But I genuinely feel like this All Whites team, New Zealand football, they're actually genuinely inspiring Kiwi football fans. They're actually changing how they're changing the Kiwi football culture right in front of us, right here, right now. And that flows down to how people support Auckland FC, Wellington Phoenix, and the domestic football that you cover so well. But why would Tyler Bindon choose to be part of a kind of poisonous USA soccer system compared to what the All Whites are doing with New Zealand football? There's no contest. And it's fantastic that Tyler Bindon is contributing to Aotearoa football. You've got the
well, can I just say there's no contest now, but 7 or 8 years ago, another guy called Tyler Boyd, had the same decision to make, and he picked America. And I think at that time, that was probably the right decision to make as well. And at this time, Tyler Bindon's made the right decision, which is going in the other way. Like, so Tyler Boyd was making that call post Anthony Hudson era. New Zealand football, a little bit of a shambles. They missed out on an Olympics that he probably would have been old enough to go to because they couldn't get their paperwork done properly. You know, and there wasn't an automatic qualification for World Cup. So it was a thing where if you play for America, you might go to a World Cup if you can make the squad. If you play for New Zealand, you probably won't. Well, that's changed now as well. And yeah, it's a nice, just think, even just from those two examples, the Tyler Boyd one back then and the Tyler Bindon one more recently, that alone sort of tells the tale of how much the Kiwi football and culture has improved, just even in that short space of time, let alone over the bigger journey going even further back.
Yeah, you do. Like, this is the reason why we're big up in the All Whites and big up in New Zealand football, because it wasn't always this way. Like, they were kind of shit, not just a mediocre performing team, but there were shitty vibes with the coaches, shitty vibes in the front office and all that stuff, which we talked about, as we always do. We keep it a full steak and cheese here, but shout out Tyler Boyd. Hasn't played for USA since 2019.
So he's getting close to maybe getting a recall this time last year, and then he did his ACL, so he hasn't even played for about 9 months. It's yeah, bit of a rough one.
I did see.
Maybe they're bad enough now he might swing back around and get back in.
But his MLS profile, Tyler Boyd, 165 pounds, birthplace, Tauranga, Aotearoa.
Yeah.
Obviously, they don't say Aotearoa, they say New Zealand, because they're well within their right too. But so Tyler Boyd, Tyler Bindon, the real Tyler, the Kiwi Tyler. You say centre-back starts under Darren Baisley. Michael Boxall's had 12. Nando Peineker's had 10. Tyler Bindon's already got 9.
Well, it plus yesterday as well. So he's up 10. To 10. Boxall's up to 13.
And Peineker didn't start?
Nope.
So Tyler Bindon's had as many caps as a starting centre-back as Nando Peineker. And you seem pretty confident in your belief that Tyler Bindon's better than Nando Peineker.
Well, I think we've also learned now that Darren Baisley believes that too, because he didn't make a single change between the semi-final and the final. Obviously, that was what he thought was his best 11. And yeah, that involved Nando Peineker sitting on the bench, which is the right decision because, like Nando Peineker, he's had like 18 months of the best football of his career, not just since he joined Auckland FC. He's been great at Auckland FC, but actually he was really good for Sligo Rovers before he left them as well. There was this big trend of like whenever he played, they did great. When he didn't play, which he happened a fair bit because he had a couple injuries, including a broken rib at one stage, they weren't so good without him. So there's nothing against Nando Peineker. Nando Peineker is an excellent player. Tyler Bindon, signed by Nottingham Forest, who might make the Champions. Like he might be playing Champions League next season. There's no comparison. He's unreal, and like I said, really good against North Carolina, New Caledonia. Got the Americans confused for a second there. Too much American soccer. Yeah. Shout out to the North Carolina Courage, though. Once upon a time, back when Abby Erceg used to play there and win championships all the time, and she could have fixed some of their culture, but no. Yeah, he was great against New Caledonia in a situation where like you don't have that much to do defensively because the All Whites obviously dominated the game. But what he had to do, he did flawlessly and emphatically. Like it was just strong challenges, decisive work. Like, this dude's just turned 20 years old a month ago. You know, he shouldn't be. But if you've followed the Flying Kiwi stuff, which well, and we've talked about this plenty of times on the podcast, tracking the Tyler Bindon stuff. Like, he does this every week for Reading. Like, he plays like this all the time. His average game is like an 8 out of 10 performance. That's the average game. We didn't even have to see him making goal line clearances acrobatically, hanging off the crossbar. We didn't have to see him scoring an overhead kick in this game. He didn't even need to dip that far into his bag. Like, he just had to do his average performance, which made him probably the best player on the pitch. Like, that guy is such an incredible talent. He's such a good player. And it's a distraction when people talk about his potential, because you don't have to worry about his potential. He's good enough now. You know, he's already there. He'll get better, but he's already there.
And like, I imagine like Boxall, he might be building towards the World Cup, but like for the future of New Zealand football, I mean, you got Bindon. So if you got the best centre back pairing is Boxall and Bindon right now, well then if Boxall retires or he moves on, well then it's Painika, Bindon, and then you've got Finn Sermon competing for selection as well. Which
I
is
think
very
long term it'll be Bindon Sermon, and that has the potential to be our best ever partnership. You know, those two, not only are they awesome players, but they complement each other really well too, and how they play. Where you got Bindon, who's the classy kind of ball player, and Sermon, who's just the rugged guy with the crooked nose who'll win every single header and, you know, diving blocks and all this stuff. It's such a perfect centre back partnership.
Like, I'm fully with you about Painika versus Bindon. I'm more Nando than Sermon, just right now.
For now, potentially, yeah.
Well, for me, certainly. Like, I'm Nando.
Well, for now, it's Boxall and Bindon, but if Boxall wasn't there, yeah, I think maybe right now Painika starts and Bindon just plays on the right side instead. In 2 years, when Boxall isn't playing anymore, by then it will be Sermon.
That's your opinion. My opinion. By then, it will be Nando. He's Zen, right? Nando and Joe Bell, they're Zen.
Yeah, they're the Zens. The Zen
so we've
brothers.
got a nice little Zen core there. You got Painika centre back. You got Joe Bell working around the midfield. So shout out to all my Zen brothers and sisters. Point being, we're going to explore a little bit of Black Caps. We talk about the youngsters rugby league. We're talking about Sam Ruth, but there's all these like fantastic young sports people, which is just the theme of the podcast for the last like 12, 18 months, 2 years. And that is evident in that group of centre backs, like Bindon, Painika, Sermon, and you've got a whole bunch of other players, because I've also got here your most minutes in Oceania World Cup qualification.
Well, I can give you the updated one after yesterday as well, because I did whip that up. One of these bloody spreadsheets.
Well, Marko Stamenic better be at the top of the list.
He played 90 minutes yesterday, so you know he's still at the top of the list, and he's actually extended it a bit. Stamenic, 422 minutes. Next most was Bindon and Crocombe, 360 minutes, just 4 90-minute performances, and they each sat out the game against Samoa. Matt Garbutt, 358. Libby Kikache, 345. Chris Wood, 331. Joe Bell, 298. A little bit of a drop to Michael Boxall, 270. Tim Payne, 242. He was injured for a couple of the games as well. He might have been higher. Elijah Just, 238.
Yeah.
Sarpreet Singh, 233, etc.
Yeah, I don't care.
I think that's the top 10.
I'm just looking at the top of the list so Chris Wood, he plays for Nottingham Forest. Tyler Bindon, he's going to Nottingham Forest. Marko Stamenic is signed to Nottingham Forest. He's out on loan, and he's just played the most minutes for New Zealand in the World Cup qualifiers, which, like, there's still... do you still kind of have some uncertainty around where Stamenic fits into Nottingham Forest moving forward? Like, he's out on loan, but would he actually go back to Nottingham Forest? Or will the Chris Wood, Bindon, Aotearoa connection, combined with Marko Stamenic getting consistent game time for the All Whites in the centre of the midfield, do you think that will pull Stamenic into Nottingham Forest next season, giving us that Wood, Bindon, Stamenic trio?
I think it does help that that connection there. It's certainly at least help him settle and give him a bit more of an idea on like how he's playing in the team. That'll certainly help. A couple of allies there to give him a few tips and tricks. Certainly Chris Wood, at least. Tyler Bindon's in the same situation as Stamenic. He'll be trying to figure it out himself. Yeah, 3 of the top 6 the minutes played throughout these qualifiers are contracted to Nottingham Forest. Sweet, cool, love that. I have a little bit more clarity because he's done a little bit of media work, and I think he mentioned that the plan is to go back to Nottingham Forest for preseason. So whether he can stick with it after preseason, they might decide like, you're good, but you're not quite there yet. We've signed you till like 2029 or something like that. We'll give you another year out on loan somewhere else. But right now, it's not like he's going to stay at Olympiacos, definitely. He will go back to Nottingham Forest in between. Tyler Bindon will go to Nottingham Forest as well for the start of preseason. I think Bindon will stay with the first team. I think he's good enough to do that. And there's been a couple of defenders, like backup defenders. I know they're an Irish fella who sort of moved on from. So there is a little bit of a window of opportunity there. Stamenic might need another midfielder to disappear, but that happens all the time in the Premier League. Players come and go, so that might well happen as well. And while he hasn't had like the best impact at Olympiacos, that doesn't necessarily matter. I think it's also about timing as much as it is about those other things. And he hasn't had a great fit with Olympiacos just because of the squad they have, didn't really have space for him. But I don't think that necessarily counts as against him. I think Nottingham Forest are going to bring him back for preseason, and they're going to look at and evaluate the player that they signed, not the guy who, like, they're not going to look at his performances for Olympiacos. Look at the profile of the guy they decided to sign a year ago, whatever it was. So there's hope. There's certainly hope for all three of them.
And of course, Matt Garbutt. So we're still no idea what he's up to as far as club footy goes. Did he play in these games, and did he play well? Like, how did you view the Matt Garbutt situation? Because that is still, like, I mean, it's not as interesting as the Nottingham Forest trio. Might be as interesting as
it might be if he joins them. Maybe they'll just sign him as well. Agent Woodsy on the case.
But there's these funky pockets that I've just kind of sorted out in my mind. We got the Zen brothers. That's not a real one. That's just the funky one. It's a funky one. But you've got the like centre back group, but then you've also got that left back situation. Right. So just answer these questions quickly for me.
There's no left back situation.
So who played left back in the final?
Kicache. But they did make a sub at halftime where De Vries came on at left back and Kicache moved further forward, which has obviously added fuel to the fire of all the people who say that maybe that's how they should start. And Francis De Vries, he's so good. He's what a crosser. He's got to be in the 11, but he doesn't have to be in the 11. All our corners were really good. Kicache was whipping in great corners. Payne was whipping in unreal corners. Francis De Vries came on, got an assist from one of them. Fantastic. Like he did the job. They obviously wanted another crosser because our crossing was the best thing. So it's like halftime plan. Let's just, the guys are a little unsettled. Let's simplify things. Like Pete Seeger once said, be a genius and just simplification. And just cross the ball and then of course Chris Wood got injured straight after that, and they had to bring on Costa Barbarosas, which kind of spoiled the plan, but not really because they still scored a Michael Boxall header from a corner. But that's against New Caledonia and Oceania qualifying. Like, you can't just only be a good crosser. De Vries, love him, but he'd get torched by Premier League wingers running at him, whereas Kicache plays in Serie A every week. He's used to those. He knows how to handle himself in those situations. At the World Cup, that's not a question. But fair play. De Vries has got, I think, a goal and 3 assists in limited minutes throughout these qualifiers. Like he had a great impact. He did what he was there to do.
Yeah, but he plays for Auckland FC.
And
he's got to be first 11 for New Zealand. Like, it's got to happen. But that's just depth. That's the depth we have. Where you can completely change your tactics by bringing on De Vries. But when De Vries came on, Kicache stayed on the field, is what you're saying, and he pushed further forward. So that's an interesting little pocket. The Sarpreet Singh is always an interesting pocket. Was this kind of one of his best periods of All Whites football that you've seen him play?
I think he's almost always great when he plays for the All Whites. I thought he was brilliant in the first 30-odd minutes against Fiji. And then after that, as a team, it was like they were about 3-0 up already. I think they sort of decided they would try score some cooler goals rather than just the crossing it to Chris Wood's head. It was a little bit more intricate, trying to interplay stuff, which Singh was very involved in. And he has a tendency to get a little too unselfish in those moments. So there was some of that where he's like, he went from being unreal to just a good solid, well done. You played really well there. You got a goal, you got an assist. Like, good performance. Less impactful in the final because of the way the game went, where New Caledonia really just sat everyone back and defended stoutly, and he didn't have a lot of room to operate. But he was still, he was more impactful than Garbett. I didn't think Garbett was. He was both rusty and also situations that weren't quite suited to his style of play, which is a bit better at. You'd rather him running into open spaces, and there's just no open spaces against teams who play like that. So there's, at least he got some minutes though. He hasn't had any of those at club level for a long time, so that's nice for him.
So Sarpreet Singh's playing in Portugal right now.
That's the one.
And Matt Garbett isn't anywhere.
Just hanging out under 21s at his Dutch team, staying busy, trying to stay fit. Darren Baisley said he'd played some games for the under 21s. I can't find any proof of that, but I guess at that level you play a lot of friendly and closed door games and stuff where maybe that's not necessarily going to be reported on. But so I'll take his word for it when he says it. I'm certainly not going to doubt him. He knows Matt Garbett a lot better than I know Matt Garbett. So if he says that, yeah, sweet as. He's at least had some minutes for the under 21s team. But yeah, nothing for the senior team. My one thing where that might change, and I wonder if this was part of the thinking, is if perhaps he's seeing if he can outlast the coach. Like if the coach gets sacked, a new coach comes in, everyone gets a clean slate, he's back in the mix. That might be a situation. I don't know if it's necessarily something he's planning for, but that might be something that happens before the season is out. We were waiting to see. That could be a situation.
The Wellington Phoenix Women had a 2-0 loss at the Porirua Park Fortress. That wasn't much of a fortress against the Mariners.
Nope. You might be winning that. It wasn't a bet, but you might be winning that the will they, won't they make the playoffs thing. It's not looking good for my hopeful prediction of last week.
Yeah. Don't mess with my my vibe assessment. Yeah, but they're only 2 points behind Brisbane Roar, who are 6th. That is the finals cutoff for the A-League finals. And Brisbane Roar have a game in hand, though, so that works in their favour. But they've
I think that's midweek against Melbourne City. So hopefully they lose that.
Well, they've lost their last 3 games. Wellington Phoenix have only lost their last 2 games. But it wasn't a inspiring Wellington Phoenix performance aside from the moment behind you there. Do you have anything to add, or is it just kind of commiserations, melancholy for the Wellington Phoenix women, who are still, well, as of right now, they're still yet to make the A-League finals, and it looks like they will not be in the finals as I have already predicted, but it's still possible.
Well, how about this? If only the second halves counted, the Phoenix would be 4th. But unfortunately, they also have to play first halves. And even when they play well in first halves, as they often do, they seem to be a team that starts really well. Like this standard pattern, which I think sounds encouraging. I don't think it is encouraging, though. When you actually play the same way and lose most weeks, that's not, you're just repeating your mistakes. That's not a good thing at all. But they do tend to start well and then not score a goal and then concede a silly one just before halftime. And then maybe they concede another silly one after halftime like they did here. Maybe they get an equalizer. Maybe they even go and get a winner. Maybe they concede it. But they're almost always, how often, what have I got here? They've only scored the first goal in 7 of their 20 matches. And most of those weren't recently. So I think, let's see if I can... Unfortunately, I wrote this down in paragraph form rather than in what you call it. In first halves, first halves they scored 7 goals in 20 matches, and 3 times they've kept a halftime lead. 3 halftime leads in 20 matches is awful, and only scoring 7 goals in 20 first halves is awful. Like they're not good enough to keep. They've had some great wins through the season where they have had these second half comebacks where they've just turned it on, scored a couple goals, flipped the script, fixed matters from where they were at halftime, good adjustments, whatever. But it hasn't. those adjustments haven't got them to where they're able to just do that in the first half instead and be 2-0 up at half time instead of being 1-0 down and having to come back and win 2-1 or whatever. And they're just not good enough to keep being able to make those comebacks. We saw that against Central Coast where they ran out of answers, they ran out of steam. And unfortunately, it is looking like that is going to cost them a spot in the finals. There is still hope because, yeah, if Brisbane lose again to Melbourne City, but also tire Melbourne City out and injure a few of their players, so that when the Phoenix play them on the weekend, play Melbourne City on the weekend, maybe they have a chance. They've never beaten Melbourne City, though. In fact, I think they've lost every time they've played them, so I'm not holding my breath on that one. Paul Temple did say he wants to pick his best team every game, like try, take these games seriously, give them, while there's still any kind of mathematical chance he's going to go out there, pick his best team and try win. Yes, good, sweet as, but maybe, just maybe, that best team should employ a little bit more Ella Jerez, who did get 10 minutes off the bench against Central Coast, looked a bit like young players often do, playing at a senior level for, first time it's her first season at this level. She's played a fair bit of National League stuff, but in National League stuff, your speed and skill override things. Here in the A-League, the physicality is also quite a factor, and the speed of play, like the speed of the game, not just the speed of what you can do, but the way the game flows end to end and whatever. Like that's stuff that takes some time getting used to. And I thought there were promising signs from what she was trying to do in that one, and maybe not such promising outcomes, largely because of the reasons I mentioned, which is just simply a matter of adjusting and adapting to the level. And so if you give her as many minutes as you can over the rest of the season, which maybe that's just 10 minutes per game off the bench for the last 3 games, maybe that's all it is, that's still fine. Build player like that up so that they can be more impactful next season, to more ready to, to be a key contributor when it matters, when you got a clean slate, when you start again next season. I wouldn't say no if that's the situation. But yeah, unfortunately the top 6 stuff isn't looking great right now. It's hanging by a thread.